Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connection, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello and welcome to a new episode of Back to Basics, Reconnecting to the Essence of You. Today is a special episode for me because I have known Byron and Mariah Edgington for a while now, and Byron has been a past guest on Back to Basics. But we're going to talk about them authoring a new project called Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, which encompasses a book, a guidebook, and an online course developed to honor their mission to elevate other people. Hello, Byron and Mariah. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, really. Thanks. Good to see you again, Leticia.
I'm so happy because Byron episode is by far one of the most popular episodes of Back to Basics. Your story is incredible, yes, and I know that you are inspiring, other projects about promoting women in aviation and other, meaningful projects. And I know Mariah, that through the Beast Catalyst community and the writings and all the work you do, I'm a big fan. So I was so excited when I learned about this new project and this new book you have, and that you said yes to share with us about the book. And but I know that we had Byron on the show, so I want to give, if maybe Mariah, you can give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, and then maybe the two of you can intertwine a little bit of, how you met. And you've been married for how long now?
22 years. Actually, we feel like it's forever.
Yeah, it's forever.
We just felt like we knew each other when we met.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
22 years is a long time. So tell us a little bit about that back journey.
Okay. Well, thank you again for having us on. And we do enjoy each other's company and have such a great relationship that we're fortunate in that way. And we know that through the pandemic, a lot of people's relationships have been challenged, not just with their own self, but with their community being gone, basically. And we came from retirement. We were retired in Colombia, South America, when the pandemic hit. And we realized my mom, who was then 89, was living alone and was very fearful of, just like everyone was. People were dying and they felt, oh no, overwhelmed. And Byron and I made a huge decision. We decided to return to the United States and live in my mom's hometown, and brought her into our home. And that's how Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough, Rediscover Your Passion, Purpose, and Love of Yourself and Life, the book, happened. Is through the pandemic, we started collaborating. And that's how good of a relationship we have. We were able to collaborate on a book project.
That's right. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to, especially in some kind of an artistic endeavor, like a painting or a stage play or a writing project or a coup. Plotting a coup, working together is not easy. It's there's a lot of opportunity for tension, a lot of shared thoughts about the project. But we were able, partly because our background, I was a commercial pilot, of course, and so my job description was lifting people up. That's what I did.
Yes, yeah, you can confidently say that.
Right. And Mariah was an RN for 35 years, and her job description pretty much was lifting people up. And so we realized at one point that we're just going to, in retirement, we're just going to continue doing that, because that's what fulfills us, and that's what gives us joy and fulfillment. And so this book, even despite the length of time it took to write it, a lot more than we anticipated, quite frankly. But the end product is beautiful, and it will help a lot of people, and we think it's timely. So we're very proud of it.
Mm. And it's so powerful. And one of the things that I admire in the two of you, it's that, as you said, you had successful careers, important careers, helping others. You move all over the world, and so many times I hear people only talking about when I retire. When I retire, this is something my dad. He's 87. He still works. He still goes to the office every day. I had never heard the word retirement coming out of his mouth, and he's so happy in what he does. And I think that that's the goal, right? And so even if you stop doing what you were doing, you found something that where you can make a difference, and I so admire that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is something that's in all of us. We want to be able to be supportive of each other, and we want to be able to reach out. It's part of life, isn't it?
It is. It is. And so when you came up with in terms of the book, and I know that both of you do a lot of introspection, and obviously you communicate a lot. And I work in the family business, so and I also work with my husband at some point, with my husband, with my dad, with my brother and sister-in-law. So all those dynamics, I totally relate, Byron. Where and I love how you said there's a lot of opportunity for tension, but there's also a lot of opportunity for growth in that whole process. And so what a beautiful way to put a book, and I love the name Journey Well. So do you want to share a little bit of what you would consider aspects of things that help us to journey well?
Sure. I mean, I can just enumerate a few of the items just from the table of contents. We talk about ways to put our past behind us, and we consider, sure, people make some pretty egregious errors in their lives. We're aware of that. And it's not simplistic. We're not dismissing things out of hand, but we consider mistakes to be lessons. Mm-hmm. Everybody has mistakes, things that they wish they had done differently. But we focus on the idea that they are lessons, and they have brought us where we are today. Another thing we really focus on is abundance and the awareness of how abundant our lives already are. And it's too easy to default, especially these days, to things in the world and things in our lives that are less than optimal. But we need to be aware of that we're surrounded by abundance. We have more than enough, and there's that phrase again, more than enough of anything and everything we need if we become conscious of that.
That is very powerful. And and I know that part of all you're doing, I was actually blessed to be part of one of Mariah's session, also to help, journey well. And so tell us a little bit, because you're really creating a whole suite of things to help others. And I love that. So tell us a little bit. So you have the book, you have the sessions, you have a podcast also, or
we do LinkedIn Lives, where what happened was, excuse me, when we were starting out on LinkedIn. So when we came back to the U.S., of course, the differences of cost of living in countries, between countries, but Colombia, South America is 30% of what cost is in the U.S. So I felt kind of obligated. I was still young enough to be out there earning a living, and so I went on to LinkedIn to look for a position, and I obtained one from telehealth. And then as I thought, Leticia, I thought the pandemic was going to be winding down in the fall towards the winter of 20. Mm-hmm. That was clearly wrong. But I went back out on LinkedIn and I started posting content, and people gravitated towards that simple message of journey well, and that you are more than enough. Own your value, elevate each other, reach out and help others. And that was a thread that I carried through my posts, and people really believed in it. They wanted something more. They wanted to feel part of a community. They wanted to feel that sense of purpose. So in 21, that's when this started evolving. And since Byron has written other books, it was kind of just a shoo-in for me to have a built-in editor and publisher in my house. Mm-hmm. And we had someone who asked us if we would consider writing a book to support other people. And so that is how it happened. And the Journey Well came from, that's how I signed my posts. And people would send that back to me. They'd say, Journey Well. And,
Mhm.
and we went, oh, okay. You know, people want to be able to journey well.
It's powerful title. I agree. I love it. And this is did I read somewhere that at some point you were living in Hawaii, and this is because I am a firm believer that these ideas, these purpose things that we're supposed to be doing, they show up earlier than when we believe. It's just sometimes we're not paying attention, we're busy, we're doing other things, but there are things that show up in our life. Like this podcast, it was showing up not as a podcast, but as something like, oh, I love putting content out there that inspires other people. And how am I gonna almost like how am I gonna do that? That's kind of very hard. And then, that was the origin of the podcast. And then when the things came up and the course that I took came up, I recognize it right away. And so sometimes that idea, I'm curious to see how that started to pan out back there in Hawaii.
It did. I just became part of the ocean. In the Pacific Ocean just drew me in, and I recognized that there was a real connection, a very spiritual. Hawaii is deep in the mana, is that what they say?
There's a lot of mana out there, a lot of spirit.
And that just drew me in, and I knew when we were leaving the island that I had been given a gift and a message. And there's been a couple times in our lives where we've tried to help other people in that way. Many, many years ago, we were with a group that elevated couples, and in the way that we have a relationship, and they were kind of drawn to us and wanted to know, how does that work? How do you have such a good relationship? So there have been different times where we knew that we had a special energy between us and a connection that needed to be expanded on. And now during the pandemic, when everyone was shut in and we saw the need, that's pretty much when we decided, oh yeah, okay, now I see how this is all coming to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful combo, because you as a couple that has been together 22 years, obviously, are an inspiration to many, and especially collaborating, doing things together. Obviously, there was a special energy from the beginning, but I'm curious, were you always so aligned in terms of the initiatives that each one of you wanted to work on? Or that's something that, as we say, was there, but then that timing came in more like later than, or it's always been that perfect alignment in the initiatives you want to work on has been there?
That's an interesting question. That's an excellent question. I think we've always shared a lot of commonalities, of course. One of the things that Mariah and I, neither one, spend any time doing is judging other people. We just don't. And we were with the LGBT community several years ago, and they noticed that energy about us too, and that's what they responded to. And we were happy to report that they accepted us. Yeah. And so we had that non-judgmental thing affirmed by a community that, quite frankly, a lot of people still judge. But we don't believe that there's no room for that in life. And so that's one of the things that has been affirming to us, is that so many other people share that value of non-judgment. Life is just too short for that, and we have always been that way. In fact, we had a woman several years ago when we were first involved with the LGBT community. We were talking about the simple. It became a political issue at some point, and I won't get into that. But the issue of same-gender marriage. And it never occurred to us that, of course, people who love each other should be able to get married. Of course they should. But we had someone ask us, now, wait a minute, do you mean all couples? Italicized, underlined, all couples. Seriously, it never occurred to me. Of course, if two men love each other like that, they want to be married. First of all, why is it my business, number one? Number two, who is to stop them? And here we have two people who are demonstrating in public their love for each other. We should be we should be promoting this. So, as I say, that's just a small example, but we have always shared that value that you don't judge other people. It's, life is just too short for that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, Leticia, because I hadn't considered that before. I know that when people come into a relationship, I would like to see, and this is something that we do speak about in Journey Well, You're More Than Enough, is core values.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know about core values, because we were really surprised, I know that you're familiar with core values, but it is surprising how many people are not aware of their own core values. They might think of the company they work for having values in a mission statement and that. And people don't realize that you cannot live into your core values until you know your core values.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something we talk about because we want to make sure that people know what their own values are and that they can set personal boundaries around that so that they keep themselves safe and they can promote their own self-care by living their own values and being true to themselves. So first we invite people to go ahead and learn what their values are, understand that, and sometimes that takes some journaling, some gratitude journaling to know where you stand on your values. Now, Byron and I have been very fortunate because our values align. And over the years, of course, over 22 years, we've probably changed a few values as we've gone on, as it's been needed, because society changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to kind of reevaluate and say, no, I don't want to have that in my life, but I do want honesty and integrity and transparency. I want to make sure that I'm a good person who lifts other people up and is supportive of a community that I believe in. And then I live that. I live those values and I put boundaries in place to keep myself safe so I can keep others lifted up as well.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Yeah, I do think, and where the question came from, it's, I feel like me and my husband also, that if the core values are not there, I think that's where a lot of couples get in trouble, because when you go back to basics, not to call my own title, like when everything goes back to basics, like, and you take all the layers, if you at that level are different, like, let's say if one person is ethical, the other one is not, how do you reconcile that core value being different, right? And so when those align, then I feel that each person has a different pace, let's say, of where they are in their own inner journey, inner development, what they want to do. So, some people kind of, they say, I want to write a book, but they feel like the time is later to write it, not now. And that's fine, because you have to go at your own pace. Others feel, yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it now because I want the message out. So I always say that the pace that in which we can journey well, everybody can journey well, but at different pace. And especially in the couple, I find that sometimes that pace is different. And that also can cause friction or problems, because I find that, and thank God I'm not in this situation, because my husband supports sometimes my crazy ideas. But, I've seen people that have great ideas, but they take that other person supporting them, not bullying them into, are you crazy? That's never going to work. That's not a good idea, So I wonder how I always say, how can you help a situation like that? When you see people that are aligning the core value, but maybe are not being the best person for each other to really develop their inner needs in the way they need to express it. I don't know if you follow me there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of back to basics, I'll put your title in there for you.
Thanks.
Several years ago, was a fellow named Robert Fulgham, and he wrote a book called "Everything You Need to Know You Learned in Kindergarten."
Mm.
And he had a list. It was a beautiful little book, and it really was. But the main premise of the book was that this is not complicated. These are simple things, and it starts with courtesy. It starts with just being aware of things and so forth. And that's kind of what we focus on in Journey Well, You Are More Than Enough. And I should reiterate too that, and thanks for mentioning this at the beginning of the show, It's a book, paperback, hardcover, and an ebook. And there is a gratitude journal that is coming very soon. But there's also a guidebook that goes along, like a workbook that goes along with it. And the gratitude journal will be available very soon. But really, our core message is very simple. It's just to help other people find their dignity and claim that dignity and realize in our subtitle, if you will, okay, because people talk about all the time about how, oh yeah, you're okay, you're doing fine, you're okay, you're enough. But we took it a step beyond that. You're not enough, you're more than enough. And the reason we chose more is because you can't define more. It's like soon or someday. You can't define it. And so, and one of the quotes that we love is, the only limits we have are the ones we put on ourselves.
Mm.
And so there's a fair amount of focus on mindset in the book as well, because people do need to know that they are more than enough, and their thoughts can create a better world for themselves.
And when you look at couples, you're right, Leticia, where you have, and it's not always basic. So you do kind of have to go back to the basics and think about what, as I said, the core values are, what your own core values are. But when you're in a relationship, like with you and your husband, and you come up with these crazy ideas, as you say, I like to think of them as just inspired ideas that you have that are out there waiting to happen. It's when we realize that we have a responsibility to ourselves, unless we have children or some older person that we're responsible for, and two, but when you have a responsibility to yourself and your ideas, you can build on those yourself. If the other person wants to tamp that down, then you have to decide. And that's a decision. You have to make a choice in any relationship. Is this something that I really want to go after? Or is this something that will wait till later, as you said? Mm-hmm. And when you have a relationship like that, as when you are supportive of yourself, oftentimes the person that you're in that relationship realizes and understands this is feeding your soul. Just like your podcast. All of a sudden you came up with that idea. It might have been sitting there in the background for a long time, but when it was time and you felt it, you knew inside, you felt that energy and you projected it out. And in that way, your partner or husband lifted you up and said, yeah, go for it. Mm-hmm. The world needs you.
Absolutely. And then magic happens, because then, and I say that's why it's part of the personal journey, and I love it that you highlight that it's your own process, and I think it's freeing when you are in a relationship. For anybody out there, because I do have people I know that say, my husband doesn't want me to do this, and I say, but you can, and if you do and he loves you, he's going to eventually support you. He's going to see you're really serious about it. But if you discard the idea and you put it on the side, then also the message you're sending to him and to others is that it's not that important to you. And so then you yourself are kind of self-sabotaging an inspired idea and not letting it come to life. But if you do, then it's freeing, and then everybody can really be who they are in their own skin. And then you are in a relationship, but it's not, that concept of, if he or she is not in agreement, then I'm not going to do it. It's not like buying a house. You need agreement for certain things, but for other things, you can just run your show.
Yeah, and I think that's where the title of the book came from.
Yeah, I think so too. And, and one of the other things that, speaking of that and peripheral to that, that we emphasize in the book is that we all have a gift. We have a unique gift. Everybody has one. And again, we go beyond that. We recognize everyone has a gift, but we're saying you need to share that with us. We're all putting this massive, beautiful jigsaw puzzle together, and we need your piece.
I love it.
People have done a jigsaw puzzle, and if there's one piece missing, what does everybody focus on? They focus on that one missing piece.
Yes.
So, you look around on the floor and you can't believe it's not there. So people need to share their unique gift with the world.
Yep. And rediscover.
And rediscover your passion, purpose, and love of yourself and life. Yeah.
I love that. And that's why my compliments to you in putting together the workbook. I think a lot of people send a message with books, and books are great, but until we put pen to paper, that I think that's where the real co-creation starts to happen. Yep. Where we make it real, when we read our words, when you can go back to that workbook or journal 7 years after you wrote it and rediscover the passion. It's such an important part for the rediscovering, the actual practice. And this is something that I want to emphasize with people out there listening, that they have this want. Is not only listening to this podcast, it takes you going and hopefully supporting Mariah and Byron and buying their workbook, but any workbook, any piece of paper, even if it's a blank page where you write it, then you're really co-creating your life.
Yeah. Do you journal, Leticia?
I do. I actually do. And I've done it since my teenage years. So I can go back to journals since I was maybe 13 years old.
Wonderful.
Yes. And of course, what I journal about has changed. It went more from a teenage diary of things that happened to me to obviously more of a more existential kind of thoughts. It's funny because you start journaling what happens to you, and at some point that's not important anymore, what happened, but how made you feel. What I felt on a certain things is what now I write about. Not so much of I went here. I go back to my early years and it's like I did this, I went here. And it was not so much about the experience of what I was living, more of what I was doing. So it is interesting to read back for sure.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Yes. So is there anything else that you want to share? I know there's so much we could talk about. We owe a conversation on plant-based eating that Byron and I discussed. Do you want to say and how that impacted his life? I'm sure your life too, Mariah, because you seem very aligned. Anything that you want to share on that or anything else? Anything exciting?
Well, that could be another whole podcast, of course. But,
yes, we do have to do one on that.
We'll have to do that. But really, this it falls under the rubric of self-care in a way, because the short version of this is that I had a heart attack almost 4 years ago now. I guess 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, a friend of ours introduced us to some literature, some books, and he has been whole food, plant-based for many years. And he introduced us to this concept. And we got to researching this whole food, plant-based meal plan. And we were just astonished at the research, the peer-reviewed, sturdy, robust research that's been done around this topic. And we realized that, and mostly because of my heart attack and our health initiatives going forward, this is really something we need to look into. And we for the last 3 years now, we eat plants. That's it. Mm-hmm. But it comes under healthcare because we're convinced, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox here because nobody wants to do that, but we're convinced that the reason we have so many health issues, especially in American culture, the cancers and the heart attacks and the autoimmune diseases and inflammations and all that, it's the food. Mm-hmm. It's what we're putting on our plates and eating. And again, I'm not going to get dogmatic about it, but we believe that it's, in fact, I think 100 years from now, people will be just astonished at the way we eat and what we feed ourselves. Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Self-care is important.
That is interesting. No, I totally agree with you, and I think one of the things that I love the most about the two of you is you are like always open to for what I hear. Like, well, we read this and this research, and like I feel me and my husband are very similar. Like even with every decision we make, it's like we just don't want to take a decision because everybody's doing. We want to understand why. We want to understand what's out there, and are open to changing our viewpoints if what is presented it makes sense. And I think that's very important.
Yeah.
So
one of the main themes in Journey Well You're More Than Enough, rediscover your passion, purpose, and love of yourself and life, is that rediscovering yourself so that you can bring yourself back to finding the love for yourself. And I want people to know that self-care and self-love is not selfish. It's similar to, everybody's heard it, when the stewardess or flight attendant says, put your mask on, your oxygen mask on yourself first. There's a reason, because you cannot give out from an empty cup. You can't serve other people unless you take care of you. And so my big hope with this is that we can help people to understand that there is an abundance out there. We have to find it within ourselves too, and really love ourselves and find that person within, because that amazing person is inside of you. And when we can find that, we can give it out.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm so happy that the two of you join forces with this and that are sending this message, because it's really powerful. I think when a couple does it together, it's even so more powerful. Yes, because you represent alignment, and I was just talking to somebody recently. I'm a big diversity and inclusion advocate, as you know. But to me, it's almost like the fight. We cannot win the fight if we try to do it alone, like only women or only men. We need to do it together. We need to join forces. And I know, I was so inspired when Byron said we need more women in the cockpit. We need to, and to have men like that, that's what we need. And you're an example that all these issues that we're facing, we cannot tackle on our own, one or the other. We need to be inclusive. We need to embrace people, all sorts of people with all likes. I'm with you. Some of my best friends, are people that sometimes I don't see eye to eye with the way I live, but it's just so powerful to say, I love you no matter what. And we can agree in the basics, in supporting each other, loving each other, all this good stuff that we're talking. So I know the two of you are very active on LinkedIn. So anybody listening out there, they have LinkedIn Lives. I will put your webpage, which is fantastic. I also reviewed it ahead of our interview. I congratulate you for all you've done. I'm like, oh my God, they're really doing a lot.
Yeah, even though we're older, that's one thing, that people who are younger and they think, oh, I'm tired and I need to just sit down and watch TV or whatever. No, get out there and support other things that you are interested in, because at any age you can have energy if you look for it.
I love that. And you're not older, you're so young. This is the beauty of it. This is, when you see people that, you could be still in Colombia on a beach or like doing nothing with your time, but then this time, imagine all the good you're putting into the world just by doing this. And probably you feel great just by doing it. And that's what most people, I don't know why it's so hard for people to grasp that concept, but the fact that you are helping us to grasp the concept is really empowering. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, we have a chapter on mindset and kind of a neuroscience. One of our best friends is a neuroscience. She calls herself a neuroscience geek.
Okay.
And she points out a very important point that as you referred to it, being altruistic and giving of yourself and giving to other people is kind of a selfish act because it makes us feel so much better. So we need an outbreak of all this. And we need this to be, for people to understand that and really assimilate that into their thinking.
That's what I love. It's very, very thought-provoking ideas that keeps you young. Well, that's good. I know I've asked Byron this, but anything you want to share that makes you tick, Mariah?
Oh, people like you who give me energy, who show up for each other, because you show up for so many people with your podcast and in your life. And you bring such joy to the world. And I think that is key in how we relate to each other and how we build community. And so I really am grateful for you, Leticia.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. But I have to give it to you and also to Biz Catalyst community. Let's give them a shout out because since the day I found them, and I found you both through there too, and so many incredible people that it's so easy to connect and give you this feeling that, oh, I'm not alone in the world. Like these are people that we had never met in person, but I feel you're my friends and I know where to find you if I need you. And I know that you would support, and I like to think the same. And so many others that we all know in common through that community that you feel that you've known forever. Just because we align so well into what we are trying to do and what makes us tick. So
yeah,
I thank you for that. And I know that people after this episode are going to check Journey Well. And I'm not going to say the whole title, but the Journey Well program. And I definitely encourage you to look it out and all the sessions and the blogs, because both of you are very powerful writers. And I know because I read all your blogs and so I thank you. I'm grateful for you too. And as I said before, you have an open microphone at Back to Basics as my recurring guests anytime.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Leticia. We really appreciate you.
Yes,
likewise.
And of course, Journey Well.
That's right.
Likewise, my friends. Likewise. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. And until the next episode of Back to Basics. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Back to Basics. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or any of your favorite streaming platforms. This is the best gift you can give us. Join me next week for another Back to Basics conversation. And if you want to find out about other exciting things I'm working on, visit leticialatino.com. Thank you, and until the next time.